Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Salesforce with Zach. Today we're going to be talking about Salesforce Flow basics. We just want to get our feet wet. My hope and my dream with this video series is to take you from being a complete beginner of Salesforce Flow to being self-sufficient. So without further ado, let's dive in. First thing that you're going to want to do, of course, is come to Setup in Salesforce and just type in Flows to the Quick Find menu. And then let's come over here and we'll click New Flow. So there's so much to talk about with Salesforce Flow, so many different angles that you could go about. But what I want to do is work on a flow that enables my customers from my fictitious drone company to go to my website and put in a little bit of information so that I can gather a lead from them. And depending on a lot of different aspects, such as the weather for the day, their location, the time of their event, I want to make sure that that event aligns with my schedule, with the weather, and all those different things. So very beginning, we're just going to start off building the most basic version of the flow, and then as the time goes on, we'll continue to build this thing out a little bit more. But first thing you'll see is when you create a new flow is there's a couple of options. You can start from scratch or you can use a template. We're going to start from scratch today, but just know that if you come over here and you check out the different templates of flows, you'll see that Salesforce has so many pre-built flows. So maybe you're a field service mobile customer. Over here you can check out some different flows that we already have built out. Maybe you are you're getting into all the AI features and Agentforce features. You can come over here and check out the prompt flow templates. So lots of different options that you can work with, but today what I actually want to work on is starting from scratch. So some of the most common types of flows that you're going to run into, especially in the beginning days, are going to be screen flows, record triggered flows, scheduled triggered flows, and auto launched flows. So real quick, we'll go over these from a 30,000 foot level. Number one, screen flow. This is actually what we're going to be building together. So screen flow is basically like a custom UI that you can go in and create different things. So maybe you want to show some piece of content to your customers or to your internal users. Maybe you want to guide people through some kind of form where they can fill out different fields and send information into you, and you can make decisions based on those the data that comes back into you. So many different options, but just think of Salesforce Screen Flow as the way for your team or your customers to interact with a page so that you can gather data and do different things with that data. Now, a record triggered flow, similarly, it takes the data that has been already placed into Salesforce CRM, Data Cloud, whatever, Sales Service Cloud, all the different clouds that Salesforce has, and it takes that data and says, hey, whenever these specific conditions match, then we want to take some kind of action. So, for example, maybe you have a record triggered flow that says, hey, whenever a new case is created and its status is set to new and the case owner is assigned, then we want to send an email to that new case owner and to the customer, notifying both of them that the case has been opened and kind of aligning them. Here's the person that owns the case and here's the customer that you'll be working with. Now, again, there are hundreds of thousands of things that you could do with a record triggered flow or a screen flow, but again, this is pretty high level. Number three, schedule triggered flow. Pretty self-explanatory, honestly. This one is gonna take a specific date or a specific time that you select and kick the flow off. So maybe you say, okay, every single night at midnight, we want to do some kind of data transformation, or every single night at midnight, we want to do some kind of contact update or account update or some kind of data cleansing process. You can do that with a schedule triggered flow. So again, if you have some kind of nightly process that you need to be ran, some kind of organizational thing that you need to have ran at a specific time or a specific date, or maybe you even just have a flow that you want to be built out now, but you don't actually want it to start for a specific day, again, schedule triggered flow is going to be your best friend. And then last but definitely not least, auto launch flow. Auto launch flow is very similar to a record triggered flow, except this type of flow is kicked off when some kind of external system tells it to start. So for example, you'll read right here, launches when invoked by Apex, a process, a REST API, and more. So again, an auto launch flow is a flow that runs in the background and basically says, hey, this Apex class just ran, let's go ahead and start this flow now. Or we had some kind of initiation from our API, from a third-party vendor, or whatever the case may be, let's go ahead and kick off this flow. But again, I think that the type of flow that covers the majority of these things is actually going to be a screen flow. So let's work on a screen flow together. So I'll go over here and click screen flow and then click create. And we're going to see the amazing Salesforce Flow screen. So get used to this screen. You're going to be seeing it a lot in your days. Again, we'll stay pretty high level. I want to just stay pretty basic, and as time goes on, we'll kind of continue to dive deeper. But looking at this, the first thing that you'll see is I have some kind of update, so I'm going to exit out of that. But over here, if you click this, you can see your toolbox. This is where all of the resources that you built out, any custom components that you want to work with are going to be housed. So if I come in here, I can click New Resource, and you can see there are a bunch of different types of resources. There's a variable, which is very common. We're going to be using those a lot. There's a constant, so this is just some kind of hard-coded value that you're going to be using throughout the flow. Formula, pretty self-explanatory. You can build a formula that you can then use in different parts of the flow to display different information or have the flow take different actions based on all kinds of factors. Text template, choice, record collection, all of these are going to have to do with the record itself that you're working with. So text template is like, you'll come in, type in some kind of information. Hey, customer, first name, last name, happy birthday, we're so excited to have you, something like that. That would show up on the flow whenever they log into their site or whatever that looks like. And then the rest of these, choice, collection choice, record choice, pick list choice, are going to be from the record that you're working with. So again, pretend that you're working on a case record and you say, okay, on this case object, we actually have a pick list field, or we have some kind of field that is displayed on the record itself coming from the object. We want to work with one of those. So in here, you can define each of those. But again, I don't want to go too deep into the resources because we'll have a whole video that covers this. But for now, resources, just know where it's at and know that it's very important and going to be really helpful for you. Next up is where you can actually select your elements. So there's no elements that we have on the pane yet, but if I come over here and I click the plus sign just beneath the screen flow, I can see the different elements that I have to work with. So let's go over these super quickly. A screen is going to be what we're going to be working on first. It is the custom UI that you build out to gather information or display information to your customers. An action is a little bit more technical in nature. Again, I keep saying this, but I promise we will get to this. But the action kind of sits on the back end and says, hey, we built out some kind of custom component or custom solution that we want to be invoked at a certain time in the flow. So that's what you would use an action for. And then the subflow is where you might want to kick off another flow within a flow itself. So this might be considered the parent flow, and within the subflow you might have, or for a subflow example for us is, we're going to create a custom form where the customers can go to our website, fill out a lead generation form, first name, last name, date of your event, what type of event is it, and tell me about the weather. So we'll have a custom Lightning Web component that will display on the screen that displays the weather. And maybe with the subflow component or element that we're looking at here, we can actually run a flow that goes and grabs the weather information and then aligns it with the rest of the information that we have in our parent flow right here and make sure that, hey, based on the temperature, the wind, the rain conditions, and even a schedule based on our schedule, we can confirm that yes, this is a good date for us. We can, book this appointment and continue on. And the rest of these we'll get into a little bit more detail, but an assignment flow basically takes a value from one source and pairs it up with a value from our source. A decision element allows you to come in and say, hey, based on different conditions, I want to send people down different paths. So if their favorite color is blue, I want to send them down the path on the left. If their favorite color is red, I want to send them down the path on the right. A loop, pretty self-explanatory also, but it's going to take the data that you have and continue to go through each individual record. So maybe you go out and you grab, 500 records at a time to do some kind of data action. Well, a loop will continue to go through each and every single one of those records and make an update, make a change, grab information, or whatever you need it to do. And when that last record is completed, then the loop will finish and continue the people down the different path. Data transform, a little bit more technical in nature. This one allows you to pull in data from a target data set and again, populate it, use it in your flow. This has more to do with Data Cloud. We won't talk about this one too much. Collection sort, again, you're pulling in data from whatever source that you want to, a get records element or even a transform element, and you're saying, how do I want to sort these records so that I can continue to push them down the path? Maybe there's some kind of specific order that you need the process to run through or something like that. And then the collection filter just goes and grabs information based on different conditions and houses it in basically a bucket, and then now you can take data on the action at a later time. And then the data ones, these are pretty important. So pretty self-explanatory, but create records. This allows you to go in and create a record of whatever object that you want to, a contact, a lead, an account, a user, individual email result, whatever you want. Update record, again, lets you go in and change information on a pre-existing record. So maybe you have a flow that allows your customers to go into their portal and say, hey, I changed my last name. I would like you to kind of recognize that. you could theoretically create a screen flow that would allow them to go in, change all of their personal information, and this would update, and using the update records element, it would update the information that you have on them on their little contact card. Get records, very important. This is how you actually go out and grab records that you might want to be working with. So in our screen flow, we might say, hey, we want to pull in information from our customers when they open up this screen flow. And when they open up the screen flow, what we want to do is bring in their information already. So you can use a get records element to say, hey, this person is signed into Experience Cloud. We already have all this information about them. We don't want to force them to have to type in all this information. So we'll go ahead and grab that information for them, maybe even pre-populate it on the form. That way they can just come in and make a couple of changes. Or if you want to, grab records or grab information or data from other objects, you can do that. So you have an account record and you want to go and grab the account team that's related and the contacts related to that account and display it on your form. You can do that using the get records element. And then these last two, again, very self-explanatory. Delete records allows you to go in and delete records. I do want to caution you by saying, before you choose to use the delete records element, really test your process, really vet it, make sure everything is good. Because while you do have, I think it's a 60-day window, or sorry, a 14-day window to retrieve deleted records, it can be a challenge past that time period, and you might accidentally delete records by having some kind of condition set. I've been there before, so I just want to caution you, before you delete, maybe consider archiving, changing a status, putting them in a hold period for a specific period of time, and then going ahead and deleting them at a later time. And then rollback records just lets you take the information from the record that has maybe been changed and transformed and updated and roll it back to a previous version. So pretty high level, that's what some of the elements that are in a screen flow are going to be. So the next thing that we'll look at again is continuing down this little bar. There's the auto layout option here, or yeah, basically it's like the configuration of the flow. So you can do an auto layout or you can do a free form. Now, when I came into Salesforce, all of our flows actually were freeform. So, you would come in and you would just drag the little screen on here, and then you would start to build out your screen. So I'll just call this screen or get lead info screen, and then you create your little API name, right? And I'll come over here and move my little picture over, and I'll click done. And as you can see, it just kind of hangs out there and can go wherever you want it to. This can be helpful for some people, but a lot of the times the default is going to be using the auto layout, which automatically connects your screen element. So let me just drag this little line. Now those two are related. If I click auto layout, then now you'll see that they just continue to stay in the different paths. But yeah, from a super high level, that is the very beginning of what it looks like to build a screen or start to build out a Salesforce flow, an idea of the different tools. On our next video, we're going to get into actually building out the screen. Thank you so much for joining me for this quick introduction of Salesforce Flow. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments or reach out to me and ask. Again, my name is Zach White, and I hope to see you in our next video.